and welcome to my iteration 1 testing. Uh, Here we're going to be looking at the main tests, and we're also going to be going over some extra tests at the end, um, and which those extra tests allowed me to fix major problems I had or bugs, or just tests to help me fix things I wasn't expecting to go wrong. Okay, so we're going to start first and foremost with the play game button. So that's the test name, play game button. So first and foremost, we have the play button is pressed. The game should load the playing state. For this purposes of this, I'm going to turn on the music. This is just to show you that when I press the play game button, the music stops. This is intentional because when I'm actually playing the game, the music will be different. So we want the original music to stop. Cool. Rerunning the game again, and stopping the music real quick. We're gonna go on to A2, which is the instructions and controls button. So this button, when pressed, it should open the instructions and control state. Boom! It has in fact opened instructions and control state. I also want to note that the bubble here, which initially says main menu, now in the control state says controls. So really quickly, um, the bubbles the bubbles essentially mean that they bob up and down as shown below. There's two variations. There's one called the bubble and there's one called the title. The title are for these little bubbles here. Um, I just want to make that more clearly because in my documentation I tried to explain it as well as I could, but I'm not sure if I conveyed my full point across. But the titles are essentially smaller, essentially a size. I can change the amplitude and the max and the speed that they're going up and down at. It's just the size I've changed, and that's the only thing why they're named differently. The size of the actual image. Cool. Next is A3, which is the settings button. When I press this, the settings state should load. Amazing. Cool. It has in fact loaded. And again, here it says settings on the bubble. Next, we're going to go on to the locker button. So when I press this, the locker should load, and in fact has loaded, with all the different skins that are available to the user. And then A5 is the exit button. So when I press this, the game should shut down. It has shut down. Cool. Now we're gonna be moving onto the next ones. A6, the music switch. Well, as I've just explained there, the music does start and does stop whenever this is on and whenever this is off. I do want to note that when I do run the game initially, from the start, the music does already start playing. I've just been turning it off, so it's easier to hear me speak. Next, it's A7, which is a sound effect switch. So the sound effects are the sounds that are made when you click buttons. This is the switch. As you can see, it says sound. I click that. No more. No more. Turn it back on. Cool. A8, the epilepsy switch. So what's interesting about this switch is that I can't actually include it currently because there's no flashing lights here. Like there's nothing that will trigger an epileptic fit. So when I'm actually coding the game and doing the playing thing, I will include it for it to affect it. But right now, just down here in the console, essentially when it's on and when it's off, it'll print true and false. So now that it's off, it's printed false. Now that it's true, it's printed true. So this is how I've checked that it works. And obviously, I'll have to check it again in the future when I start including actual lights and stuff, as it's a very important feature. But yeah, cool. And then A9, which is the done button. So this is the done button here. This little tick button. When I click on it, it should take me back to the main menu, and it has been doing it. And in every state, it's been doing it. One interesting thing: this is the only button that is drawn on every single game state. Well, not every single one, but it's drawn on multiple game states. It's always in the same position, and this is justified because it's easier for the user to navigate um, through a program where common buttons are in the same spot. Yep. So the layout of this is very is meant to have is well, the play button is big and in the center because that's the main button people would use, and then all the other buttons branch off to the sides. As you can see, the background itself has a sort of slanting design. I've tried to copy this slightly to match with the aesthetic, and yeah, so cool. Let's stop. Let's stop the music again. A10 here, we have is skins that will what is it? A skin button is pressed. Okay. Essentially, what this means is that when I press on the skin button, it should select the skin in selected skin.text. This is where the user selects their skins. And yeah, so for example, this is called the angry skin. When I click on this, I go back to and I go to selected skin.text. It outputs angry. Very nice. Well, it writes angry to the file. Then now when I click on another skin, it should delete angry and put another one. So for example, this yellow skin is called funny, so it should delete angry and funny should be the only thing in that text. And funny is the only thing in that text. And then finally, this one is called sick, and so sick should be there. Nice. And then this one is called freaky, and so freaky should be there. Cool. So freaky is in fact there. And then the last test is A11, which is the menu background loaded on startup. So we're going to close the program down, and we're going to run it, and we see that the menus are loaded on the background. So that's ideal, and it's loaded to fit the format and like properly formatted and everything. The size of everything I chose relative. I essentially chose it relative to the size of it, so I wanted it to be balanced. I also ensured that the size of everything was relative to the original file size, and I worked it down into a ratio of that, for example, because I didn't want everything to be stretched. So, for example, if the size of an image in the downloads was 100 by 100, so a square, I wasn't going to stretch out or anything. I was going to make it like 50 by 50, 25 by 25. I wasn't going to make it 40 by 60, for example. So I did. So everything is in ratio to its original size, so it's proportional. I do want to go over some of the code of my milestone. So my milestone is in fact this code here, the load and transform function. The reason I love this so much is because it just makes creating new objects and classes so much easier. It works by taking the type of object, the x and y coordinates, the name of the object, no, not the name of the object, the name of the first image, so the name of the true image, the name of the false image if there is one. Notice how only the toggle object has this. The amplitude, also notice how only the things that move up and down have this, so the bubble and the title, and the speed, which also only the bubble and the title use. Essentially, this allows me to fill up the information, like here for in the backgrounds, for example, fill it up with whatever I need, and it would just and the load and transform would create the object for me, resize resize the size of everything I need for it for me as well. It's just extremely useful. And yeah, the toggle needs obviously two images because when you press the toggle, it switches between two images, so the class needs it. But all of the classes are explained in my documentation. But yeah, this is my milestone. I'm really proud of this. I initially started off with a completely different function that was much more inefficient, but this allows for modularity now, and it's a lot easier for someone who's never seen my code before to come read that, understand, and even create their own objects or from wherever, like I'm doing here. Here I create my background. Here I create my buttons. Here I create the skin buttons, toggles, bubbles, titles. And yeah, this is the only thing that doesn't go through that because it's the controls info, which is this file here. It's the only thing that doesn't go through load and transform because it's just its own unique size, and it's just sort of I was like, and I figured, you know what, let me just, because everything in the load and transform needs its own size, and I was just thinking, oh, it's just not worth putting another if statement in that file for no reason, like in that function for no reason. There's no point. Here I initialize my music. And yeah, and so all of the rest of it, the rest of the classes, such as the button class here, the bubble class here, the toggle class here, everything can be seen on my documentation. This is the parent class, the class object, the thing that everything inherits from. But yeah, all of it can be seen in my documentation. So yeah, so that's my testing done. Thank you for watching this video, and yeah, so this is what we have so far. And yeah, on to bigger and better now, on to iteration 2. Thank you very much.